All right, guys. First thing right off the bat, I want to tell you that this is not an episode of me shilling Biltong. Okay, I don't even feel like I really need to do that with you guys. You guys know that I'm obsessed with it. I eat it in the backcountry. I eat it day to day. It's a product I really enjoy, and I do work with Biltong Depot. But I talked to SJ, and he's the owner of Biltong Depot during this podcast. Really, kind of more of like an informational thing, right? I think it is fascinating that us as Americans, we have a certain way that we approach dried meat snacks in from a hunter's perspective. You know, guys make jerky, they don't make biltong, right? And we dive into what are the differences, right? And is there a difference? There is a difference, but it's really more about like what the end product and the features of the end product. I mean, when I eat biltong, man, like a big slab that I always talk about, it's got that fat on it. That's so much different than what I have made and what I have consumed in terms of commercial stuff as an American, right? When I'm buying jerky. So to me, they're vastly different. We talk about that. And I actually got SJ to open up about some things, you know, how you could get into DIY making biltong. I think it's a pretty cool conversation. And he's actually a big proponent of it also. So we dive into that. What makes it different? You know, some of the nutrition benefits, at least that I see in it. It's got super simple ingredients, all of that good stuff. This is a really fun conversation. It's a little bit different than a lot of my how-to stuff, that sort of thing, but it's just a cool product, and it's also a product that's from a different hunting culture, right? This is a staple of South African hunting. Right now, everybody's out there hunting in Africa. It's the high season. You're seeing lots of pictures of guys chowing down biltong out of brown paper bags. Just so you guys know, SJ, after the podcast, mentioned to me that they will be selling biltong at all the TAC events. So if you guys want to try this stuff that I just spent an hour and a half BSing with SJ about, go there to the TAC events. You can find it. But without further ado, let's dive right into the conversation. SJ, awesome to have you, man. I have been a biltong fan, I think, for much more time than most Americans have been, but I still feel like I'm very new and naive to it. So I'm pumped to have you on, man. And I'm just gonna dive in right off the bat and have you tell the viewers and the listeners what biltong is and what us as Americans have been missing out on. Because I've been eating this stuff constantly in the backcountry and snacks just at my house and everything else. So give us the rundown, man.
Yeah, and again, thanks for the invite, Cliff, and thanks for all the support so far. But yeah, so Biltong, man, what a ride so far. It's been a long time coming. We've been working on about 10 years, introducing Biltong into the American market, and it's slowly getting traction here. But Biltong, naturally air dried beef. That's the simplest way to describe it. When I'm out at trade shows, calling it Biltong doesn't do it justice. People don't understand what the name means. There's the last part of biltong. Obviously, the tongue part is people think it's a different kind of meat. Obviously,
Sure.
but naturally air dried. It just dates back to Viking days, our ancestors, just almost prehistoric way of just curing meat, naturally air drying it. Our forefathers used to hunt a lot, and the way to cure meat was with salt and naturally air drying. There was no cooking involved or anything like that. And so South Africa made its natural food product. And about 10 years ago, I brought it into America and started making it out of a butcher shop, a little shop on the corner that we had in Franklin, Tennessee. And Bolton was a favorite. It was just a hit from the get go. So,
Sure.
but yeah, that's the short version of it.
Yeah, and we'll get into the long version because we got time. But the natural question, man, from the American's perspective, I think particularly from a hunter's perspective, because like the vast majority of the people listening to this, SJ, are going to be familiar with jerky, and probably a huge chunk of them have made their own jerky. I mean, guys that are within the realm of guys that have hunted for very many years, at least half of them do a batch of jerky eventually, right? So we're familiar with that process. What's the difference? Because when you say like dried meat, to me, I know what biltong is because I've eaten it, but I think a lot of people are gonna be like, well, that's the same. That sounds like what jerky is, you know. So
Correct.
so like how do you define the two?
Yeah, so biltong is basically just South Africa's version of jerky, right? It's a dried meat.
Right.
Um, how it differentiates from jerky is that it's the air drying factor. And when I'm saying air drying, I literally mean you take strips of meat and you dry it in open air. In South Africa, typically, we would just hang it outside, um, in a good environment, climate wise, humidity wise, and we'll get a little bit more into that later. Versus jerky is more of a cooked product. So jerky is the typically sliced. It's put in a dehydrator or a smoker of some sort at a temperature, and it pretty much gets cooked, and has a lot of most jerkies probably have a bunch of sugar in there, where biltong
Sure.
traditionally is made without sugar. Very limited ingredients. I mean, all you really need is salt, and then we use vinegar as an inhibitor. So that's the main difference versus air drying versus dehydrating.
Guys, Biltong, okay? I have been obsessed with this stuff for 3 or 4 years. Ever since I got on a keto, carnivore, paleo-esque type of diet, I've had a hard time finding healthy snacks. Biltong is a great option, particularly the slabs that have this fat on the side. That's where your energy is if you're a fat burner like me. Super simple ingredients in this, guys. Literally 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 ingredients. Compare that to your gas station jerky. A great snack in the backcountry or just day to day. Biltong Depot is a huge supporter of my content. Go to their website, biltongdepot.com. Use my code CliffGray, CLIFFGRAY at checkout for 10% off and to support this content. Thanks, guys. Right. And I guess from like somebody who consumes this stuff, it's way different because it's thicker. So there's two observations I noticed, man. Like it's thicker, and I guess what goes along with that is I would say like in a general sense it's juicier, and then fat isn't it. There's fat on it, right? Which that I mean honestly that's what got me like first interested in SJ is like. At the time that I got into biltong, it was because I was like strictly doing the carnivore diet, and since then nowadays I'm a little more lackadaisical about it, but I still kind of stick to that. But one thing about that diet is if you try to just eat jerky, I think it's probably correlated to the fact that there's like 1,000 ingredients in a lot of jerky also, but jerky has a bunch of protein in it, but it has almost no fat.
Correct.
And I and maybe you may not even know the answer to this, but I assume it's part of the process. Like, how is it that you guys can keep fat in the meat and preserve it, whereas the folks that making jerky can't?
Well, a lot of jerky for the most part again comes back to the cooking factor. If you start cooking meat, you render that fat,
Right.
which leaves a bunch of grease on the surface. Um, Especially in a package, that's not a very good appearance, and the fat is just going to lay on the surface and it's going to turn white. So it's just not that good. This doesn't work well with jerky, but with biltong, we still use a lean cut of beef. So with biltong, we still use meat off the rounds. For example, we use a lot of IF rounds, bottom rounds, top rounds, where it's a leaner meat, but it has the fat cap on. So what we're staying away from with biltong is internal marbling,
I got you.
like a wagyu, for example. You got all that beautiful marbling, but that fat doesn't dry. So with our drying process, we stick with leaner meat, but we can leave that fat cap on there. So that's once you bite into it with the fat with that lean meat, that's where you get the juicy factor from.
Yeah, I got you. It's not, and I know exactly what you mean because it's almost, it kind of, the analogy to me, SJ, is it's like the cuts you're using are more like New York steaks rather than they're very unlike ribeyes and they're more like New York's. Like there's basically like a yield of fat on the outside. Which man, the one product of yours I always talk about is the slab that has the fat on the side of it. And I have to ask SJ, is that one of your big sellers, or is that, or Americans not into that? I'm just kind of curious more than anything.
Well, what we got going for us right now is, like you said, it's this whole hype with carnivore and people, wanting that animal fat with their diet, trying to avoid plant fats and all that kind of stuff. So we really have that going for us. But what the fat also does is it adds a lot to the flavor. So, like us using beef, we always, or biltong, we call it air dried steak these days. The
Sure.
whole, it's the whole slab, the whole
Right.
steak that we cure with salt and we hang it up and we air dry it. and we sliced it. But it adds a lot of flavor because of the limited ingredients that we have. So with us here at Biltong Depot, salt, pepper, coriander, that's our base. We keep it real simple. We keep it real authentic and traditional. And what fat does is it adds flavor. Now, depending on what that animal ate, for example, we do it only with beef. With venison, we stay away from fat. It's just because of a lot of what the animal eats gets stuck in that fat content. So
Sure.
it can turn the product bad real quick.
Yeah,
So,
yeah,
but
yeah.
it adds a lot to the flavor.
It's funny you say that, SJ, because I've been guiding bear hunts the last 20 of the last 25 days, and bears are the epitome of that because I utilize the fat a lot, and it's almost sometimes when you kill a bear that has a lot of fat on it, it's almost like you're almost more pumped about that than the size of the bear or whatever else, just because if you're into utilizing bear fat, there's all this cool stuff you can do with it. But when people ask me about it, it's that exact same thing, man. Like if the bear has been eating something that it sounds weird, but I can tell when I walk up to a bear if it's gonna taste good or not because I can tell if it's been eating, if it's been killing stuff like it's been eating elk calves or something, it smells a different way than if it's been eating like vegetation or berries or acorns or that sort of thing. And then in certain regions, if it's been eating if it's been eating salmon, like and those tend to be the unappealing meat is bears that have been eating salmon or they've been doing a bunch of predator stuff, right? They're eating other meat, and it for
Right.
sure affects the taste. But the fat, all the fat does is whatever the meat tastes like it just powers it up. That's how I would describe it. Like if I'm cleaning a bear and it smells like acorns or it smells like choke cherry because that's what it's been eating, I know that if I leave the fat on it, a lot of times I'll trim some of it off just so it's not like egregious. But if I leave some of the fat on it, it's just gonna like pump up that taste. But
Exactly.
but if I know a bear is gonna be marginal because I can just tell it's been killing calves or something like that, I'll tend to trim all the fat off because I know that it's like the bear's gonna be edible, it's gonna be fine, but I don't want to promote like that taste. It's almost like nature's salt in a way, I guess, or something.
Yeah,
You know?
that's exactly what it is. I mean, the saying is fat's flavor, right? You are what you
Yeah,
eat, type of deal. And man, we've had it being in the Biltong business now for the last 10 years, which the last 5 years under USDA. It really well I learned a lot in South Africa.
sure.
You get animals, you make Biltong. It's an everyday thing. Everybody does it. But coming to America and starting to dial it in to get it into a more of a commercial market, so to speak, and get it dialed into where people can expect the same product every time. That's the tricky part, and fat is playing a big role in that. We get people calling up all the time. It's like, man, it's changed it. Well, not anymore, of course, but back in the day, people would call up. It's like, man, what you do to that recipe? This tastes way different this week. It's like, dude, the recipe is the same. It's
Yeah, I gotcha.
I change beef suppliers, so
Yeah,
it's and it tastes totally different.
yeah, which is interesting because that's isn't it funny how, and I don't know if it's uniquely American, like maybe it's just like the commercialization of any product. It's weird how like in general customers are kind of intolerant of change. You know what I mean?
Really.
I know guys in like the produce business. I have a bunch of clients who are in the big farmers, and they say the same thing. Like if you change the look or shape of an apple, it's like problematic. We
Absolutely.
want a very uniform product, and so that is kind of an interesting thing. I can see how that'd be a challenge. On the history of it, like in particular in South Africa, right now, SJ, I have a lot of buddies who are either just coming back from hunting in Africa or they're going right now. It must be, I'm pretty naive to hunting in Africa, but it must be like the high season because I know a lot of guys are going and hunting right now. But I've been seeing biltong. I've been,
Yeah.
I see it in paper bags and that sort
Yeah.
of thing, and it's so it's not like a made up thing. Like it's obviously very much part of the culture there. But I have to ask, and you kind of hit on it a little bit in South Africa. Is it something that's more like a DIY thing, or is it commercially bought? Like, how does that actually look there?
Yeah, so South Africa, and I mean, there's so many different versions of biltong too. Just to come back a little bit earlier, you talk like our main thing is steaks. I mean, we
Sure.
have steaks, we dry them, we slice them, and it's more like a steak, like a medium rare steak effect. But you get it in stick version, you get it in little thin sticks, you get it in thicker flat foam pieces. So again, in South Africa, it just kind of depends on what area in South Africa you're from. DIY is a big thing. I mean, it's like right.
Okay.
Everybody makes biltong. Everybody makes biltong, but there's South Africa is still old school in terms of butcher shops. So there are every town has several butcher shops, and yeah, it's whoever the butcher shop has the best biltong is what's going to make or break them.
Right. Yeah. Sure.
But
No,
yeah, very common, very common over there. You can find it in grocery stores, not as commercialized as jerky is here in the US. Mostly butcher shop. You mentioned the brown paper bag. That's the
right.
traditional way that you will find biltong in a butcher shop. They'll slice it fresh in front of you, throw it in a paper bag that it can breathe in the paper bag, and that's just a traditional way of doing it.
I got you. And but guys making it at their inside their home is it's pretty normal too, huh?
Pretty common, very
Yeah.
common, absolutely. Again, it really depends on the area. A lot of biltong making happens this time of year. It's Southern Hemisphere. It's winter time over there. A lot of hunting, and those are more ambient temperatures to dry biltong. I can get into the little bit more in the technical side of biltong making here a little bit, but I mean it can turn on you real quick. If you're in an environment, if you live in an environment where there's high humidity and high temperatures, not ideal conditions to make this product. But in the winter time, makes it more safe to make it because you have a cooler temperature. Even though you have a higher humidity, possibly in winter time, you still have a cool temperature, and so that's a perfect conditions to make biltong.
Yeah, I got you. And if you don't mind, SJ, let's talk about that now, dude. Because I mean, I'm real curious, and I'm sure people listening to this are, because it goes back to the fact that so many Americans are used to making jerky at home, particularly hunters. Um, what are the challenges that? Because there's part of me when you describe it, I think to myself, oh, that's a lot easier than making jerky. Because jerky, I gotta marinate it, I've got to trim all the fat off. There's all these steps that I have to do, and then I essentially dehydrate it. Slash, I mean, really, from what I've seen with jerky, is most people nowadays basically cook it. You know, they basically cook it to dry it out, and that's how they end it.
Right.
But anyways, like there's all these steps, and it seems like a lot. But then I think to myself, well, there's got to be like what's the catch? Because one thing that I do notice about jerky is that I cut it so thin that I'm not really worried about it, going bad or something. Like I've never had jerky go bad while I'm processing it.
Right.
So yeah, what are your thoughts on that, man? Like, and I guess overall, like if somebody's thinking about
Yeah.
DIYing it, I mean, what's I guess what are the catches and what should they look for when they're doing it?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, really simple to make, but there is a little bit of science behind it. If you like jerky, we call it a cooked product basically or dehydrated, but essentially it's cooked.
Right.
And that's your kill step. So once you do that, once you add a kill step to any kind of meat production of some sort, making a cured meat, that makes it a safe to eat product.
Yeah.
Biltong, we don't have that. We don't have that kill step with heat treatment. So we have to factor in a couple of other things. We have to factor in airflow, we have to factor in temperature, and we have to factor in humidity. Those are the three. Those are the three main parts. Is it easy to make? Absolutely. I mean, you can take a chunk of meat, add some salt in there. We started adding vinegar way back in the day. We started adding vinegar to biltong processing, and a lot of people do it without vinegar, but vinegar is the inhibitor. So if there were to be any kind of bacteria or anything on the meat that you're using, the vinegar should take care of that, right?
Ah, okay.
Right. So, and also, well, they added vinegar in South Africa in the early days to just avoid flies. I had no idea that it was
Yeah, sure.
it was an inhibitor to treat bacteria, but just to avoid flies, the vinegar seemed to do the job. So people started adding vinegar into some of their biltong recipes. But it turns out we have to use it for air drying to make it a food stable or shelf stable, ready to eat product. We have to introduce vinegar to the recipe. But yes, conditions wise, I mean, there are several things, DIY stuff that you can find online. People building Biltong boxes,
Right.
and they have heat lamps in there, and it's all fine and well. But I mean, if you have ambient temperature in the room where you're going to be hanging your meat, if you run, and nice thing about America, we all have well, most of us have HVAC systems in our
Right.
houses, so we can run a steady, 68, 72 degrees, and typically in that kind of environment, it will eat your humidity. It should keep your humidity down. Those meters are relatively cheap. If you want to just measure humidity in the environment that you're going to be drying in, then you don't need a box. I mean, a box can be really cute to have all the stuff contained and to keep insects away and to contain the drippage that might come off of there. But for the most part, if you can control your humidity below 55%,
Yeah. So
and
anybody who's running an AC is going to be way below. Yeah.
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. And then there's ways to change that too. I mean, if you have high humidity, you can lower the temperature. It's going to give you a much longer drying time. But the temperature and humidity, those two play together. So you have to regulate those. High humidity, low temperature. Higher the temperature, very low humidity,
Right.
and
You
then
know.
airflow.
Yeah, and that
Airflow is
all.
the mhm.
Yeah, yeah. You gotta have. There's not like stagnant air. So I mean, you're talking just like a fan or something like that.
Just like a fan, it's perfectly
Yeah.
fine, and you can blow air onto the product or you can suck air away from the product. You just want that moisture to escape. You don't want that moisture to be lingering around the meat all the time. It will cause mold.
Yeah, yeah. No, that makes sense. It's funny, SJ, because I feel like, and maybe this is uniquely American. I don't know, but I do feel like the more I travel and the more I go other places, Americans are deathly afraid of something that doesn't get cooked. You know what
Right.
I mean? Like, have you perceived that at all, or am I just? It
Yeah.
seems like that's the case, and they're like afraid, even though like, and we can get into it because I actually think it's interesting. Like you're talking about kill steps, and I know that's like a part of like a USDA protocol and stuff. But and I'd love to talk about that more. But when you're DIYing it, it's like what you're talking about is not that. I don't think that's uncommon at all with a lot of different food products, but Americans like cringe at it because we're so used to like cooking things. And I don't know what if that's like ingrained in us when we're,
Yeah.
young or what. I mean, like sushi really in the
That's
US,
a
I mean it didn't catch on until like the last like 10
yeah.
years, because people are just afraid.
It's
Which it's
definitely a
interesting.
culture, definitely a culture thing. It's definitely a culture thing. I mean, I bump into it every day when I do trade shows, and I'm out on the road sampling all the time, getting feedback, and
Yeah.
it's always like, man, you don't cook this? Like, no. I said, well, have you ever had prosciutto? You like prosciutto?
Right.
Yeah, I love prosciutto. It's like, well, same thing, right? This is beef prosciutto.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, for sure. Well, and in the end, like you're still so my understanding is instead of cooking it, you're basically using vinegar as the kill step. Is that right?
Yeah, it's not so to speak a kill step. There's a lot more to it. I mean, there's
Oh,
times
okay.
and processes. There's a lot more science to it. Once you start getting into like USDA regulations, there's a lot more to it. But I mean, the short answer is yes. The salt pulls moisture out of the meat, cures the meat. The same exact same as like a country ham or a prosciutto. Even those smoked salmon you can buy at grocery stores. Those things for the most part are just salt cured.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, salt pulls the moisture out of it, which moisture can help bacteria growing in there. So that's what you want to remove. You want to remove moisture, and you want to push it away with air somehow.
Yeah.
And the vinegar is used as just an inhibitor.
Yeah, and that it's funny because it's like all the same thing. I do a lot of hide work, or historically I have, SJ, like I've salted dozens and dozens of bear hides and elk hides, and I used to do a lot of my own work. And it's kind of like the same. You deal with the exact same issues, right? You
Yeah,
just got to stop bacteria growth, and it's weird
yeah,
because, like, I've kind of I mean, I'm sure that you're in your shop and in your facility, and you can detect things when they're right, wrong, or whatever. And I'm sure you got a bunch of sophisticated ways of doing that. But it's weird because in my like the part of my trade as a guide, like taking care of hides and salting hides and that sort of thing, I've done it so much that all those factors you're talking about, I can tell by like the smell, the feel, like how the moisture's like pulling up off the salt. I can tell if something's not right. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
It's kind of it's an interesting thing that I'm sure if you're working on this stuff all the time, you figure out pretty quickly. I mean, it's like an art
Yeah.
to some extent,
It,
you know?
it is. It is. If you make it, I mean, if you do it to the scale that we're doing it now, I mean, obviously, coming out of the butcher shop environment, a butcher shop typically is a cool environment, where they work with meat. So in South Africa, I mean, it's easy, right? You make butcher shops make the salt, pepper, there's bags of seasoning you can just add to meat, and off you go. For the guys doing it at home, they are the ones that sometimes run into issues just because they don't really know. They think they can just pick up a bag of spice and throw it on their meat and hang the meat up, and it's all going to be dandy. But
Yeah, yeah, true.
then in the meantime, they live down at the beach, or it's raining outside. They're hanging the stuff outside. There's moisture getting to it. Mold starts growing. So there are a few factors, but the real simple things, and common sense is really just the main thing here. I mean, you can
Right.
you can see real quick if that meat's not looking good. Don't eat
Yeah,
it.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Don't keep pushing it. Try it again. Yeah.
Right.
No, I totally get it, man. And then you pointed out, and this is relevant to anybody in the U.S. who's doing it on deer or elk or whatever. Now, even in South Africa, when it's done on game meat, it's universally trimmed. Is that right? Or are there certain game meat that's not trimmed on, or like what does that look like?
Yeah, so venison is not typically there's not much fat on there. I mean,
Right.
there's not there's venison in South Africa or game meat in South Africa. There's no cornfields or soy fields
Right.
or around there. For the most part, wildlife over there are fenced in. They just eat natural vegetation, which would give them
Sure.
just a really lean meat. So keeping the fat on there is not really an option. There isn't much on it.
Right. Yeah. So in that case, it's a little bit different product than like the beef product that you
Yeah,
see.
totally different.
Yeah.
Yeah, with fat on biltong, really the only thing. I mean, you can probably try it with eland, would be the closest to beef.
Yeah.
Um, but in general, game meat very lean. I've done it with some deer. I've done it with some deer meat. If there's good cornfield around, like got a nice
Sure.
young doe, and she's got a nice layer of fat on her. I mean, I've tried it that way, and it's not bad. It's not bad, but it's not beef.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. I think what you're pointing out is it's funny, SJ, because hunters try like it's. I have this conversation with hunters all the time. Like I've been eating game meat my whole life, SJ, but I mean, I would be lying if I said that like just from a pure state, like a pure taste perspective, that beef it's just better. It's just
yeah,
it's just better than game meat from a
beef is
taste
good, man.
yeah, from a taste perspective. I mean,
Right.
it's hard to argue with that, and again, it just comes back to the fat thing. Like the fat, there's so much flavor to it. So it is, but it's important to point it out that it is different. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think that like for me, our game species here are kind of the same deal. Like I rarely will kill an elk or a deer that has any fat on it, and then if it does, they'll have some, but pretty minimal. And
Hmm.
even if it does, I always trim it all off because like to me, deer fat doesn't taste that good. You know what I mean? It's like a different
Agreed.
yeah, it's almost
Agreed.
like it's got a different texture to it and that sort of thing. So
Yeah.
to me, it's almost um, it's a little. Well, you're a sheep guy, right? You guys have sheep,
Oh, yes, sir.
personally.
We have,
Yeah,
we have
to me, venison fat is like a little similar to lamb fat, at least in my mind.
exactly.
You know what I
Yep,
mean?
that
Um,
gamey fat. And
yeah.
and we run into the same thing sometimes when we use grass-fed beef. In South Africa, the most sought after beef is what they call C grade beef, and those are typically your older dairy cows, for example.
Okay.
That's going to give you that yellow, that nice thick yellow fat, like some of the grass-fed beef that we see here in the US. Which that tastes totally different from a grain-fed animal. I mean, a grain-fed animal, your fat will be typically white, There will be a white fat cap versus your grass fed would be a very greasy, almost yellow fat that gets on
Ah,
there. And in South Africa, that's the gold. That's the gold in South Africa is that yellow fat. Yellow fat's a bit weird, still a bit a bit of a cultural thing here in the US. I mean, I like the yellow fat, but for the most part, people are just like, all right, well, I'm giving fat a shot, but this stuff here, that just looks a
ah,
little weird.
oh, so that's interesting. So, because I feel like grass fed is like, and just so you know, SJ, like I come from a cattle ranching family, so like
Yeah.
and I've seen this like cultural shift, and it's
Hmm.
like anything, right? There's like there's like the norm of how everything's going, so of course you're like biased towards that. I vividly remember when grass-fed beef started catching a little traction. My father being like, "Oh, this is a fad. This is total
Yeah.
bullshit." Like, you know what I mean? Because he's used to the system that the system that is 90. I'm sure still 95% of the production, if not more, or whatever. But
Right.
what's interesting is it biases a whole country's like what their expectations are. You know,
Yeah.
it's
That's
it's kind of wild.
It is, and it's bad. There's so many mixed opinions about it, but
Right.
I'm a beef guy, man. I've been on the carnivore diet here for the past 6 months, and absolutely love it. I cannot eat
Oh,
enough
okay.
meat at this point. Oh, I love it.
Dude, so
And
I gotta hear. I mean, if you don't mind sharing, SJ, like what? Because anytime somebody mentions it, like I interrogate them on it. What's your
yeah,
experience been with it?
dude, it's awesome. It's been a game changer for me. I didn't think I was going to be able to do it. Now, coming from South Africa, we eat meat. We're a meat eating culture.
Sure.
We eat meat 3 times a day, type of thing. And growing up, it's like cholesterol and heart attacks and this and that. You can't eat too
Yeah.
much red meat, and you eat your vegetables, and it's a must. And I've been listening to Sean Baker for a while on some of his podcasts that he's been on, and I was like, man, I'm a big meat eater. I wanna give it a shot. It seems like people are getting into this, and I'm gonna just try
Sure.
it. I was suffering with high cholesterol. I was I had chronic heartburn on a daily basis, man. I practically lived on Nexium. Had
Oh,
to take
okay.
it every day religiously. Cannot skip it. Even after surgery, I had some surgery even for all my acid reflux. Didn't do a thing, and my gut started feeling weird. I'm not a spring chicken anymore, and I was like, man, is this just part of getting old, or can we change something? It's like
Yeah. Sure.
let's try a diet change, and gave the carnivore thing a shot. And man, it took a couple of weeks for my system to adjust to it, but it's gonna be hard to get me off of it at this point.
Yeah.
I feel awesome.
That's interesting, man. And so you don't have like from a psychological standpoint, you don't have like trouble just eating meat every day, like in terms of being bored with it or anything else.
Not at all. As a matter
It,
of fact, I crave it.
and
I,
it's
I
I
I
have the
cannot get
exact
enough of it.
I've had the exact same experience with it, which I think is counterintuitive to people, even to my like. I mean, honestly, SJ, like and I'd love to hear your perspective on it. I don't feel like it's a willpower thing to stay on it. For me personally, it's more of a convenience thing because I have kids and my wife's not on it. So I have that, I'm not, I'm working. My wife, we kind of have pretty traditional roles, I guess you'd say. And so I'm
Yeah,
not going to make my wife cook two different meals every night. So
right.
there's those components of it. But outside of that, I mean, to this day, if I am me and my we live half and half the year, so we kind of have a weird deal where we move, and a lot of times I'll move before my wife and kids do because they're finishing up school or they have baseball games they got to finish. So I'll be a week and a half, 2 weeks by myself, and I have no problem literally eating like 6 ingredients. I can go to the
Yeah,
grocery store, buy
yeah,
cream, eggs, bacon, and steak, and I can live off of it for 15 days. And not one time during that period of time will
yeah.
I be bitching about it in my mind that I'm like bored with steak.
It's easy, man. And I
I
and,
know.
and being a hunter, I mean, my freezer, my chest freezer at home with venison meat, that's much larger than my kitchen freezer. And
Sure.
it's just packed full of meat, and it's just so simple, man. It's really easy to do. I feel great. I haven't had an Nexium in 6 months.
Nice.
My energy levels are up. My guts are good. I mean, I feel better. It's just been, like I said, it's going to be hard to get me off of it.
Yeah. No, it'll be interesting, man. Like as I've been primarily on it for now. I think like 4.5, 5 years. I got a bunch of buddies that
Oh wow.
like I don't push it because I don't want to be like the guy who's like the
Yeah.
CrossFit guy who you bring up CrossFit and then all you talk about CrossFit for 3 hours. But
Yeah.
I for sure I've got some buddies that have I've like I don't know if I've convinced them, but maybe they thought like, oh, I'll give it a try. He's doing it, but whatever. And
Yeah.
they're like lifers now, man. Like that's
Yeah.
all. They're like, I'm not getting
It's.
off.
I know. I'm the same way,
You
man.
know,
Everybody's like, "Dude, you're looking great. You lost all this weight." I was like, "All I eat's meat, and a lot of it. A lot of meat, and a lot of fatty meat. I don't know about you, but
sure.
I do a lot of fatty meat. As fatty as
Yeah,
meat I can get."
I mean, you have to. That's the thing, and that's one of the original reasons that I started eating biltong SJ is because I mean, like when I get it from you guys, like I always get I have some of it right here, but people can see like this fat. This is the slab we're talking about right here that has the fat on the side. I always get that one from you because of the fat. I mean,
Yeah.
plus I like it better, but there's
Yeah.
also like, oh yeah, you got it up there.
Oh man, I got some beauties for you. Look at that. Look at that
Nice.
there.
Dude,
Yes, sir.
the real question, SJ, is when you do that, when you trim up an eye round or a bottom round, like when I look at the fatty slabs, are you trimming, like how much of that cap are you taking off? Are you taking off most of
No,
it still?
no, I don't
Oh,
take
okay, so
any of it off.
that's what you
Yeah.
get. I got you.
I take pretty much, yeah, anything. Now, meat typically comes in with about a quarter to an half inch chunk of fat.
Yeah.
Processors at the big abattoirs, they would typically, remove a lot of
Yeah,
this.
they cut it
It
down
was
for consistency. Yeah.
right. By the time it gets to you, it's already been trimmed a little bit.
Yeah.
So you will usually end up with about quarter, half inch fat on the meat already coming into the facility.
Yeah, I
So
got you. Yeah.
don't
And
cut
and,
any
and
off.
right, and then that all makes sense from like a supply chain standpoint. Because what I was gonna suggest, man, is if you're cutting any off, you should make like a carnivore version just for the psychos who want like half fat. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because it is kind of a crazy thing. Like, and I eat a lot of it in the backcountry, and I will admit. I just did a video on this, SJ. Like when I'm in the backcountry, I can't. It's hard for me to stay on the carnivore diet because I can't consume enough calories you
Mm-hmm.
know. But I try to stick on it, let's say 80% or whatever. And one of my staples is biltong, because
Yeah.
it's the only meat that has the fat on it. Like I can go
Right.
to jerky, I can go to whatever, but then it's like, where are you gonna get the source of fat? You know.
Exactly.
I mean, it's like what are you gonna do? Squirt ghee on everything? I mean, the guys come up with all this shit, but the problem is
Yeah.
it's not practical because it's like
Yeah.
it's just messy and everything else. And it's funny, man. And I have to ask you this. I don't know if I've asked you it before, but these slabs, like I even have a specific way, like I cut it. I've
Yeah.
handed it. I've handed it to guys that are with me when
Yeah.
I'm hunting, and they'll start to cut it from the lean side, like to the fat side, and it's
Yeah.
like it like pisses me off because I know that like when I tear the piece off, like and
Yeah.
so people who are watching can see. So if you cut, and you can tell me if I'm wrong, but this is what the conclusion I've come to is you always start to cut on the fat side, and then you
Yeah.
go all the way here like 95%, and a lot of times I'll do like 20 of those down like
Yes,
right, and then
sir.
when I pull it off, it comes off cleanly. If you pull it off towards the fat, it'd be this way. It takes all the
Exactly.
fat.
Exactly. Yeah. No, you're doing it absolutely right, man. As a matter of fact, I can probably show you. I got a knife right here.
Guys, Cliff's Rod. This is my field sharpener. I created it based on iteration in the field. This is what I need. I can sharpen up my short knives, my long knives, a boning knife, a fillet knife. I built in a sweet handle on here. You can go on the website, pursuitwithcliff.com. In the top right corner, hit shop. Hit Cliff's Rod. All the details are there. I've spent a lot of time in the field perfecting this thing. Go check it out, guys.
I don't know. Can our listeners, do they watch any of this at all?
Yeah. So I put this on YouTube up, and I actually
Okay.
get quite a few people will watch it on YouTube too, SJ. So you
Okay.
can you can show people
Yeah.
on it
So
there.
fat slap with fat on. See there, we
Yeah.
have about a half inch. And like you said, just literally start from the fat side. You can take your pocket knife, and this will give you a totally different experience of eating biltong versus sliced already.
Right.
But like you said, about three quarters of the way, And you can either at this point, you can just pick off that last piece. The last thing you want to do is cut all the way through and hit your finger, because I've
Sure.
seen that happen several times too.
Yeah.
And the thinner you can slice it, the more tender it's going to be. So the thicker you're going to cut it, the chunkier slices, that's going to be more chewy, something you can put in your mouth and just gnaw on for a little bit. But if you want that nice soft biltong, thin slice is the way to go. But
Yeah.
real simple, yes, absolutely. The way to go, whole slabs, man, and just cut it. That's the freshest way. See, this one still looks like kind of a medium rare steak.
Yeah, yeah, for sure, man. And I don't, and I know you sell the sliced, and I like the sliced, and I don't mean to like, I'm not trying to crap on it, but I feel like it's a little bit of a waste to buy it sliced already, because it's just a little, it's like it just to me, and it could just be totally psychological. It's a little
Yeah.
fresher tasting when I cut it. You know what I
Oh
mean?
yeah. Yeah.
And then
Hundred
also like
percent.
with the backcountry application, hygiene's a constant issue. Like you get fat all over your hands, like it's there for a week. So it's hard
Yeah.
for I don't like shoving in my hand in the bag or whatever. So I like to cut it.
Yeah.
But I have found like if guys that are listening, one tip I'll give them if they want to eat it and they don't want to deal with always having to get a knife out is I'll pre-cut it like I just described. Like
Hmm.
slice up a whole slab where then I can just pull it out and just tear it off. And
Yeah.
it's not a big
Great
deal.
way to do it.
You
Well,
know.
the freshest way to do it too. Once you slice this product, then it starts drying out. So
Mhm.
you just think about it like this. As soon as you have the slices, then air gets to it, oxygen gets to it. Now you're drying the surface of that one little slice on both ends. So it dries out really quick. Where with a slab, you keep that moisture locked into a whole slab and just kind of, eat as you go. You have most of that moisture still locked into the whole piece.
Right. Yeah, no, it makes sense. That's been my observation too. You know what I want to talk about now, and I don't, me and you have never talked about it in depth, SJ. But one of the things that's appealing to me about it is the lack of ingredients, and I don't, and sometimes when I say that, I almost feel like naive. Like I don't know when I pull up a bag of jerky and it has like a store bought bag of jerky and it has 50 ingredients.
Mm,
I'm not. It's not that I'm here to claim that like a bunch of those are horrible for you. I don't actually know personally,
yeah,
but I do notice, at least anecdotally, that any food I eat, not just meat, if it's got a shitload of ingredients,
yeah,
I'll have like digestive issues, particularly
right,
if I'm just consuming that in over days in the backcountry, and
yeah.
so that's been an appealing part of it. And I didn't know. I mean, do you have any thoughts on that with Biltong, or is it something that you guys even it's on your radar? I guess.
Well, yes and no. I mean, we've been down that hole for a little while. Jerky, you hide the Bolton's all about the meat. There's no way you can hide bad quality meat. If your meat isn't good, your Bolton, it doesn't matter what you do to it, it's not going to be good.
Because it's simple. Yeah, it's not like you
It's
don't you
it's
don't have like a cloud of spices on it or whatever.
there's
Yeah.
not a cloud of there's nothing to hide the flavor. So with jerky making, if you're going to use a grass-fed jerky versus a grain-fed beef, for instance, grass-fed versus grain-fed beef, and you throw that jerky recipe on there and that marinade and the sugar 10 to 1, there's sugar in there. You're gonna hide whatever that beef flavor is. It's more like a meat candy,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
Where
sure.
where 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 biltong is more of your just traditional. If you're a carnivore and you just want simple biltong, and that's kind of where we're gonna stick with biltong. I mean, we've been down flavor road with barbecue and teriyaki, and we've been down that road for a little while, and then I just got to the point. I was like, man, why do I want to make this taste like jerky? It's not jerky. It's not in the
Yeah, that's
same.
true.
It's not in the same class. It's air dried meat. It's about the meat and the quality of the product, and it's more of a. I always explain it more like a bourbon versus a beer.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
just a little bit more quality, and
sure.
so quality ingredients, quality beef. That's what it's all about.
Yeah, and the steak analogy makes sense because nobody goes and eats like nobody goes out and spends $50 on a steak and then
Yeah.
covers it with I mean, it's funny because like my brother, one of my oldest brother does that. Like I'll go get him like a good steak and I'll cook it on his barbecue, and then
yeah,
he wants it well done, and then he pours A1 all over it, and it's like,
yeah.
why didn't I just get you chicken, dude? Like,
Right.
because you
Yeah.
freaking ruined the whole thing. But that doesn't,
Salt and pepper.
yeah, but that doesn't count. Like, if you're a meat
No.
guy, you just
Yeah.
eat a steak with salt and pepper, or
That's
that's
it, man.
you know, that's
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 it.
yeah, for
And they're
sure.
gonna like it so much more. Like when people show up to my house too, they go up and you know you're gonna expect salt and pepper steak. That's it. That's all I offer, whether you like it or not.
Yeah,
And I get some pretty good reviews on my steak. But again, again, there's a niche for everything. For the jerky, I mean, it's great. I mean, I love jerky. I love it.
sure.
If it's the occasion is there to eat jerky, like a little, meat sweet snack. I love it. I love jerky, but different. As far as ingredients, also, I mean, you there's such a big thing going on these days, Cliff. With the what's good for you, what's bad for you, all the artificial preservatives that's in things nowadays, and I think there's a lot of change. I look at ingredient labels these days on some of the jerky products, especially. Going away from nitrates, changing it out to celery powder and things like that. But it's always safe. It's safe to have preservatives in there. Um, if you can get a natural type of preservative, even better. And obviously you want shelf life on there. So I mean, I get it.
Oh yeah,
But
for sure. Yeah, and the consumer has to get it too, because I mean, let's be
mm-hmm,
honest. Like, they can't buy a slab of your biltong and then throw it on their dashboard for 6 months.
no, no,
Right?
bad
Yeah,
idea.
yeah,
Yeah, I
yeah.
mean, it's like,
Whereas, like, I've eaten jerky that way a lot.
yeah, it's
Yeah,
bulletproof, right?
yeah,
It's bulletproof, man. And that was the hurdle. And but there's some good brands out there these days, Cliff. There's good brands that are experimenting with different ways of
sure,
curing meat. They might not be under USDA. I mean, USDA is a strict body, and if you're gonna make a product under USDA regulations, you better know what you're doing. I mean, we're inspected daily at our facility here in Tennessee. I mean, these guys come in and they make sure that that product we put out there is safe to eat. Last thing you want to do is get somebody sick.
SJ, do you mind? Because I know me and you have had brief conversations on it. Do you mind doing like the brief overview of what you're even talking about? Like why you guys even do that, and then
Yeah.
what I guess what like the goal of the USDA body is in the context of like your business.
Yeah, I mean, the biggest thing is to put out a safe product out there, right? USDA want to make sure that if somebody buys a product off the shelf, that it's a safe product, that you're not going to get somebody sick. Maybe if there is a hole in a bag and you see by accident there's mold on a bag of jerky hanging on a rack there, something went wrong.
Yeah, sure.
Chances are something in the packaging went wrong. But USDA want to make sure that there's a safe product out there, especially with meat products. So for USDA, it's basically a wholesale thing. You don't have to be under USDA inspection if you sell direct to consumer. For example, like I can make biltong in a butcher shop. Guy comes to the counter. I sell him some biltong, and off he goes. There's no USDA inspection for something like that. It's basically buy at your own risk type of deal.
I got you. So
Um,
if you're buying direct, it's like it's up to you to analyze the situation or whatever. Yeah,
Pretty much,
yeah.
pretty much. Yeah. There's not strict regulations on there. You might be inspected by your state.
I got you.
They might come out if you're starting to be more commercial. Like if you have a butcher shop, for example, the state Department of Agriculture will come to your butcher shop, make sure you have hand wash sinks, you have proper clean equipment. But that only happens like once or twice a year.
I
With
got you.
USDA, with being under USDA inspection, you have to literally prove with studies or supporting documentation, like how this product that you're going to give out to a wholesale to be able to sell in a retail store is going to be a product that's not going to get somebody sick.
I got you.
So for Biltong, this was a really, really tricky. And again, there's companies out there that can sell over the internet. They can sell out of their basements if they want to their neighbors, and that's all fine and well. But as soon
Sure.
as you hit it in a retail store, USDA is a must.
Yeah, from it's basically a legal requirement. I got you.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. And it wasn't easy with Biltong, especially. it was tricky when
And that's just
got
because
into the
it's a unique process. It's a new product, and
yeah, and
you
there
know,
wasn't any studies on it. I mean, there wasn't any studies in the US ever to prove that this is a shelf stable, ready to eat product. So when I
right,
first presented this to USDA, it's like, okay, so what's your kill step? It's like, well, there isn't one. Like, well, no, you're not going to make this under the USDA inspection. You need more evidence. You need studies. You need supporting documentation. I was like, well, game on. I like a challenge. I'm going to be the first guy in America to make biltong under the USDA inspection. And
sure,
so the obsession became real, man. And we just got after it and started working with universities, doing studies. We didn't want to change our formula pretty much. We wanted to keep it authentic. We could have cooked this product, right? I can make biltong in a dehydrator. I can add temperature
right,
to it, which would cut off on my dry time. Where it typically takes me 6 days to dry a slab of meat naturally. I can do it in a lot less time if I add a lot of heat to it if I cook it. But I
right.
wanted to do it. I wanted to keep it authentic, and so yes, a lot of studies, a lot of research, a lot of supporting documentation, and eventually we got the recipe dialed in, and we got the science behind it, and now we make it the most natural way you can possibly make it, mimicking just the perfect environment to dry meat in.
Yeah, and that makes sense. And I imagine because I feel like I've heard like I could be wrong on this, but I feel like there's things that have been called biltong in the U.S. before, which were
Hmm.
probably which were probably like products made how you're describing. And
Yeah.
and the thing is, it almost convolutes your problem even a little bit worse, SJ, because now you have Americans that not only did they originally not know what biltong is, now they think it's something else, and then now you got
Yeah.
you got to show them what it actually is, you know.
Yeah,
But
it's tough, man. It's a battle, but I mean, it's like if you go to South Africa, for example, and you bring in a bag of jerky into South Africa, South Africans are going to call it biltong. I mean, they're not going to
oh,
call it
okay,
jerky.
yeah, I
Yeah, I mean, it's
gotcha.
a dried meat. So
Yeah,
I mean, yeah, it's this is biltong.
yeah, I
So
gotcha. So it's an interchangeable, like the vocabulary is pretty much interchangeable, but it is a to me it's a totally different thing, you know.
yeah,
Like, but it's really just the style of how you're
the
making it.
style.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
yeah.
mean, people for the most part, if I go out there just doing sampling, people for the most part will just call it jerky. So what's
Yeah.
this jerky? What's this jerky? Like, well, it's air dry jerky, if that's what
Yeah,
you
yeah,
want to
sure,
call
whatever. Yeah, it's my unique
it.
jerky. It's good.
Yeah,
I mean,
you like
yeah,
it?
that's the thing is you're gonna have a hard. I mean, I feel like what you face, man, is just like it's just like anything. It's like a new product, so more and more. I mean, I
Yeah,
haven't. Oh, I mean, I've given it to a lot of people, man, when I'm hunting, and a lot of people follow me, buy it from you, and they try it, and I noticed a lot of guys had it in the food that they pack for some of these trips I guided. So I rarely will I'll get when I give it to somebody, a lot of times there's for sure a reaction of like uniqueness. But I don't know that I've ever had anybody that really disliked it, SJ. Like, I,
yeah,
I would say the one, and you pointed it out, the one thing is if you're going to try it first and if you're going to try it off a slab, you got to cut it relatively thin. Like, I'll, you know,
yes,
I'll cut one that's a half inch wide, but I kind of know what I'm getting into. Like, you know what I
right.
mean? It's gonna be
Yeah,
it's gonna be a
you know
little
what to
tough.
expect.
Yeah, and I gotta
Yeah,
tear it across the grain or whatever. But if I do that to somebody who's never tried it before, it could be like a little turnoff, right? So, but without outside of that exception, I've never had anybody who didn't like it.
yeah.
And I've had a lot of people that are like, dude, that's good. You know,
It's crazy good, man. If
yeah,
you're if you're a meat eater, biltong is definitely your thing. And man, we do so many here. We want to bring so much awareness to the products we possibly can. So we're out there all the time, just
sure.
sampling and it's hard. 99% of the time, Cliff, when somebody walks past me and I slice them a thin slice of biltong, and they'll even man, I've convinced vegetarians to eat biltong before.
Just give it a
But for
try.
just think
Hey,
of
the
this
cow the
as
cow's already dead.
yeah. And, but for the most part, even people like, I don't like jerky. It's stuck in my teeth and this and that. And I was like, just give it a
Sure.
shot. What do you have to lose? 99% of the time, it's like, man, what is this? I
Yeah.
love it. So, It's great. It's great. If you don't tell the whole story in the front end, which can get people a little bit, it's not a good product and all that. It's one thing, but if they try it, they'll buy it.
Yeah, no, I agree, dude. I
Yeah.
gotta. We can finish off, man, because I want to talk about one of your other products real quick, and then and if there's anything else you want to talk about, we can talk about that too, SJ. But I'm gonna mispronounce it. Your the I got some here. Is it Drywors? How do you pronounce it?
Drywors.
Drywors.
Yeah.
Say it again.
Well, it's Drywors.
Oh no, dude.
Yeah.
You're gonna have to give an
Dru-
American version, dude.
Drywors. That's the American version.
Drywors.
So yeah. So Drywors is basically translates into dry. So
Okay.
dry. We changed the Druwe out for dry. So on our packaging, you can see it's called Drywors.
Yeah, this is how
It's
you.
a
It's and
yes.
crown is crown a flavoring.
Crown is a flavoring that we actually brought that we're bringing in from South Africa. So that flavor itself is a lot of coriander. It's a very intense coriander flavor to that spice. Obviously, a big South African market here. They love our products. So we brought in that spice from South Africa just to be like a home away from home kind of feel
Sure.
for
Yeah,
a lot
yeah.
of South Africans buying it. But that product does have a little bit of sugar in it. That
Oh,
particular
okay.
one, the Crown one does.
Oh, I got
All
you. That
natural.
that spice that set of spices adds some sugar. There's some sugar in it.
That particular spice does. Our natural Drywors or just our original Drywors and our smoked Drywors is all same recipe, pretty much the same as Biltong.
Oh,
Um, you
okay.
know, salt, pepper, coriander. It's a sausage version of Biltong, basically.
It's just ground up and then cased.
It's it's ground up in an 80-20 mix, 80 lean, 20% fat.
I
We
got you.
grind it up. We grind it up, do it with salt, pepper, coriander, and then we stuff it in a sheep casing. So instead of the traditional meat stick that you find in a collagen casing here in the US, we keep it on the traditional sheep casings. That's what
Oh,
we have.
okay. Gotcha. And
Yeah,
this is very like much. I mean, it has. I guess it has the advantages like the minimal ingredients and that sort of thing. But from an American standpoint, it's similar to a lot of other things that I've had.
yeah,
Like meat sticks. It like just functionally, it's a similar deal.
yeah,
And it is like if you're looking for straight convenience, it is nice because you can just grab them. You don't have to
yeah,
cut them. But it's good. It's good too. I haven't eaten as much of it as the biltong, but
yeah.
I'm starting to get more into it, man. But I
It's gaining.
and go ahead.
It's gaining traction for sure. I mean, at first we were like, man, Bolton was a weird word. Try to pronounce that one.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But
This one
it's
you
yeah,
almost
it's
have to give
actually
it
our
a new
best.
name.
Yeah, but man, it's definitely catching on here, and it's just a thing about a stick, right? It's like a meat
Hmm.
stick, and then you have this all natural air dried meat stick, totally different. It's got that snap to it. It's got the nice, little bit of fat in there, which is always cool. And then it's got a coarser grind as well. I don't know if you picked up on that.
No,
So
what is that? What does that mean?
it means like when we grind it, we do one grind only, and we do it
Oh, okay.
we do it in a coarse plate, so you have a lot more texture to that sausage than what you would with your traditional just jerky sticks or meat sticks that's out there, which is a lot. I wouldn't call it emulsified. It's not like bologna, but it's a finer grind. Where the dry horse is more of a coarse grind,
Yeah, I
and give
see
you a
what
little bit of a
yeah,
different.
I see what you're saying. And it gives it more of like a texture and
Exactly.
they for sure do like snap when you
Yeah,
eat them. It's
that good sheep casing.
yeah, yeah, it's pretty good. And it's dried the same way, like in the
Same way,
casing?
man.
Ah,
Air
okay.
dried. Yeah, yep. So we make it. It takes about 3 days. So it dries a lot faster than Biltong. Biltong takes us 6 days to dry. The dry water takes only 3 days to dry. So real quick process and real quick turnaround on those. They great little addition to our lineup.
Yeah, yeah, sure. No, I like them. And it's interesting you say you're there it's just as popular as biltong for you, you said.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, not as popular. It depends on the platforms where we sell it at. Obviously, South Africans love it. They know what it
Sure.
is.
They know exactly what they're getting into.
Yeah, and but people searching for all natural meat stick, this is as natural
It
as you're gonna
pops
get it.
up. Yeah, yeah.
It pops up there. So on Amazon, top seller on Amazon for our drivers, and yeah, really catching on here. A lot of people starting to get interest and want to start carrying it.
Yeah, no, for sure, man. And I used it when I was backpack hunting a bit this last week because I ran out of the slabs. But I do want to cover that real quick, SJ, because a big part of my audience is guys doing backcountry hunts. Um, what in your opinion, like, because I don't know the answer and I get asked quite a bit. It once you pull out a slab, how, like, what's the appropriate amount of time? I mean, assuming that it's not 120 degrees stuffed in a backpack. Like
Yeah.
what's your feeling on? I mean, how should somebody package it? Can they get away with it a week in a backpack? Do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, absolutely. Best way, if you once you break the seal on the bag that you buy it in, those bags you have there, we inject a nitrogen gas when we package those, which that keeps it fresh within that packaging. Once you open up that bag, you introduce oxygen back into that bag, right? So if you're in a very humid or damp climate, that there's moisture that's going to get into that bag, that together with oxygen, you're going to start growing mold in there.
Sure.
So typically, what we do is we'll send, especially with our bigger bags, we'll send paper bags with us. But paper bags does well. You also, like, I mean, if you buy salamis, for instance, at grocery stores, I know a lot of, I think some of the boar shade products that I've seen in grocery stores,
Yeah.
they just wrap those in in a paper.
Yeah.
What paper does is it if there were any moisture, that paper will absorb it. But even a cloth material, a lot of people back in the day in South Africa, when we traveled with a whole bunch of biltong, we'll just put it in some kind of cloth bag. You want
Okay.
that. You want that. If there were any moisture, you want that moisture to escape somehow.
I
Just
got
just
you.
close just closing it up in a plastic bag, and there's nowhere for that moisture to grow, and you're gonna get condensation in there. You're probably gonna end up with some mold.
Okay. I got you. So
So
you're, instead of putting it in a Ziploc or something, the best thing to actually do is like even just put like a half slab like in a paper bag or something like that, and probably
paper
do better.
bags, yes, sir. Paper bag works the best. Or like I said, even a little cloth. You get little nice little cloth bags these days as well at some of the butcher shops. I've seen them. But yes, in a cloth bag, you want that meat to breathe.
Yeah, I
That's what
got
it
you.
comes down to.
Yeah, and I'm sure you guys probably haven't done the analysis, but I have because I do so much of this backpack hunting and like and I don't know if you're familiar with the SJ, but there's kind of like a people try to shoot for 80 to 120 calories per ounce because we got to carry it all the time. And
Yeah,
what I have seen is it's about like 80 to 90 calories is my best
right.
guess. And I've always thought because I know the labeling is like an average. Whenever I'm going
Yeah,
backpacking, I try to take the fattiest slabs I can get because I figure
yeah.
it's actually probably higher calorie than on average than what the label's saying.
It is.
But
Yeah.
I guess what I'm getting at is like for a product that because it's not completely, I don't view it as like completely dry. Like it's not like
Mm.
completely dehydrated or whatever. There's still like a little like that fat moisture to it, I guess we'll call it. It's pretty good on that front. Like it's pretty darn close to like 100 calories per ounce, which makes it actually pretty good, a pretty good backpacking food, right? It's not going to be
Yeah.
like it's not going to be like a dehydrated mountain house or whatever, but also like I can't eat dehydrated. It tastes like shit after a while. You know what I mean? So the
Yeah.
biltong's a good change on that front. So I'm a big fan. But anyways, SJ, I love the fact that you're able to get on here, man, and give us all this information. I mean, I'm infatuated with the product. My audience already knows that. But I mean, is there anything else you want to cover? And if not, where can people find you and find the product?
Yeah, absolutely, man. I would encourage people to get involved, especially with hunting seasons. I mean, I always say there's a season for making biltong, right? If you're
Sure.
gonna make if you want to make biltong here in the US, there's a season for that. I went down to I did a bunch of turkey hunting this year. I did the Grand Slam finally,
Yeah.
so very proud of myself on that one. But I was like, man, I don't know if you see my videos, some of my videos on Instagram I've posted lately, but I was like, hey, what about turkey? Let's try to. Typically, you won't use fowl meat for air drying because bacteria just grows a lot faster on
Oh, I
you know
got
what
you. Sure.
on bird meat, for example. But I mean, there's a way to do it, and the way to do it is to cut thinner strips. So we were down in Texas, and we got a couple of Rios down there, and I was like, I'm gonna make turkey biltong. So I cut the breast out. And I was like, all right, we got some spices. I know, kind of spice meat ratio, salt meat
Sure.
ratio, what I have to do to it, and cured it. And we just hung it outside. We're in El Dorado, Texas, and so it was really dry, and good airflow. It was a windy day, but thin strips, and those little thin strips dried overnight. I literally put salt on it. Where I hung it up outside on a little string. Next morning it was dry, ready to eat.
Huh.
And how you know it's ready is water activity. Pretty much, if that meat is dry, I mean, water activity we measure about 0.85 is going to give you a shelf stable, ready to eat product, but that's still pretty high moisture. 0.85 water activity is it's kind of like our Biltong slabs would be at that water
Okay.
activity, so tender. But if you dry it out more, you have less chance of bacterial growth. So if you have a really dry piece of biltong that dries really quick, there's no chance any bacteria is going to survive in there. There's nothing for it to feed on.
I got you.
So yeah, so there's different versions and a lot of interesting stuff coming up here at Biltong Depot. We're gonna experiment with a bunch of different meats this year. We're gonna launch some bison. We're gonna get into the bison biltong making a little bit, and then I got intrigued by that turkey thing, man. So I'm probably
Yeah,
gonna
yeah.
explore that a little bit more. It's much cheaper than beef.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
No, no, that might be cool. Well, and there's also people that that just are not red meat eaters. You know what I mean? But we'll
yeah,
have to, yeah, me and you have to get together and do a deer or an elk or something like that. And
yeah,
selfishly, if I was you, SJ, like one of the things I would be thinking of is like the whole jerky analogy in the U.S. Everybody
yeah,
makes jerky out of deer and elk, but I think
yeah,
what happens what has happened for the jerky market is all the hunters go through this big pain in the ass of making their own jerky because it's a lot of work. And then
yes,
what happens is it turns them into jerky buyers because they for the rest
yeah,
of the year they're used to eating their elk jerky, and then now they're
right.
eating jerky that they buy too. So all we got to do, man, is just convince a bunch of people to make biltong at home, and they'll eat
Do
it, and
it.
and then once they get through that, they'll buy a bunch of Biltong Depot
Yeah,
biltong. So I honestly
yeah,
think that's the case, man, because
yeah.
you gotta get familiar with the with what it is and
Absolutely.
everything. But
Well, I got a new studio set up here at the facility, so I'm going to be doing a lot of videos this year, Cliff. I'm going to educate as much as I possibly can, but encouraging people as well. If you have meat, try making biltong.
sure.
On our website too. We started doing some DIY kits. We have this little cabinet that you can find on our website now. Basically, all it is, it's like a see-through cabinet, and it's got a little pool fan at the top of it.
Okay.
So we just moving air through that cabinet, and it comes with little spice packs with it, so really easy to use. Really want to encourage people to get involved. Try making it. It's real simple to make. There's a season for it everywhere. I think next week we're launching a video with buying grocery meat and turning it into biltong
Oh,
at
okay.
home.
So and you're
So yeah,
so that you got some content coming down the pipeline that like literally walks people through how to do it.
oh yeah, man, step by step. I
Cool.
want to get people. Obviously, I love to sell more biltong. I sell the better, but I want people to get involved, man. It's fun. It's
Sure.
it's it's really fun. It's a cool product. It's super high in protein. Really simple. Checks every box. Whatever diet you're on, biltong is going to work for you. Zero sugar. It just checks every box, and fun thing to do, man.
Yeah, yeah. And man, I will say, SJ, like, not to dwell on it too much, but I notice like if you have neighbors, friends, family who aren't hunters, and you give them fresh game meat, they'll almost always ruin it, and
Yeah,
they won't like it. But man, if you
yeah,
give them a processed thing, like biltong, jerky,
yeah,
sausage you make or whatever from game meat, it's a
yeah,
way better gift. That's like my thought on it because it's generally like it's easier for them to consume. They like it better. All of that. I've noticed that because I like giving away game meat, but I've realized that
yeah,
if I just give somebody an elk roast, they're if
yeah.
they're only used to cooking beef, they're gonna overcook it. And,
Like,
they're,
oh
all
man.
that stuff. But um,
That's true. That's true. And the nice thing too about Bolton is you can pull it off whenever, however you like it. So I mean, if you are gonna make it at home and you're more like that medium rare type of guy, you pull off your Bolton when you like it. If you
oh
if you
sure,
like it if you like it after day 3, if you're more of a medium rare guy, heck, do it, eat it. And
Yeah.
if you're more of a well done guy, let it go for another day or two, and then it becomes more of a rib effect, almost, especially with game meats. Sorry, just back to the difference between the game meat and beef. Beef typically, more like a steak, medium rare, medium is kind of where you want that dryness to be. With game meats, I typically go drier, almost like where you can take that piece and you can twist it and it starts cracking, and then
Okay.
you can just kind of rip pieces off of the sides of it instead of slicing with a knife, like you would typically beef biltong. More of a rip and tear type of effect. So,
I got you.
but a lot of cool content that's coming soon on our Instagram page and YouTube channel. We'll introduce every kind of different meat. We're gonna have fun
Oh,
here in the
cool.
studio, man.
Good deal, man. So YouTube channel is just Biltong Depot. Instagram is Biltong Depot
Biltong
too.
Depot
Cool.
across the board. Yes, sir. All platforms. We're pretty new in it. We only started doing this year with the social media machine.
Yeah.
We've always just been word of mouth and doing trade shows and all that kind of stuff. But
Well, dude, you got
I'll be
to.
there.
Yeah. No, you gotta. You'll catch up, man. You got to catch up to Carnivore Snacks and all these other guys that are putting,
Yeah.
these
Yeah.
massive social media things out there.
Yes, sir.
So
I'm coming for you. There's Africa. They just need to get used to the accent. That's the thing. But everybody's like, well, that kind of makes it unique. That guy talks funny. Let's listen to him.
good deal, man. Well, hey, SG, I really
Awesome.
appreciate having you, man. Thanks for coming on.
Yes, Cliff. Thank you, sir. I really appreciate it.
All
See
right,
you.
see you, man. If you enjoyed this content, do me a huge favor. Subscribe on whatever platform you consume it on. Spotify, Apple, YouTube, whatever works for you guys. Everything else is on my website, pursuitwithcliff.com. Go there and it's going to be very apparent to you that I work my ass off just to not have a real job. All the hunts I guide, all the seminars I put on, all the unique experiences I offer, and the membership site, all the details are there.